Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today in this video, I'm just going to be showing you guys my CD collection, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I just took out this box. Sorry, I don't know why I sounded like the Kingpin. Vanessa, would you join me at Jack in the Box? Anyway, but just wanted to kind of take a trip down memory lane and kind of feel that nostalgic feeling of, again, music that I grew up listening to, and I have an emotional connection with as well. It's just every musical style that I grew up listening to just meant there's so much depth and meaning behind it, and how it affected me as a person, as a musician, as an audience member too. So, but yeah, let's dive into it. I just kind of wanted to share my collection, my CD collection with you guys. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first couple of CDs I want to show you is Rush. I have two CDs of 2112. This album was I was just not ready to hear this, and I remember my dad showing me this on his cassette tapes back in the day, and this was like the start of something that was brewing in my head. Listening to this as like a kid, like maybe like, I don't know, like 7 or 5, I don't know. But I think some of my favorites obviously are 2112, The Temple of Syrinx, and then Passage to Bangkok. I think Tears, I remember that one too. Something for Nothing. So like, again, yeah, this album, way ahead of its time. And again, the musicians, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart, huge inspiration just listening to Rush. This one as well, Farewell to Kings, Xanadu, Farewell to Kings, Closer to the Heart, Cygnus X1. Man, those songs I think were my favorite off that album, especially Xanadu. I think Xanadu was one of my favorite percussion parts as far as Neil Peart's playing in that whole entirety of that song. Yeah, totally obsessed with as far as, because again, he's the drumming of Neil Peart, and I would say Xanadu was one of my favorites off the Farewell to Kings. And I remember most of the time, I remember buying these CDs way back in the day, $19. And I used to buy these CDs back at Barnes & Noble back in the day, and it was just, that was the way I would, wanting to listen to a certain album, I just, I would go, maybe once every other month, and I would go with my brothers, and we just buy, each one of us would buy one album. And so I just think that during that time, again, with it was barely the start of maybe the iPod era, but not really. I think it was still like cassettes and CDs were still, that was the medium back then. It was really CDs in general, if you wanted to listen to albums and stuff like that. So you couldn't really, I don't think there was hardly any like main websites that were, I think there was a few back in the day, but majority people had CDs, and the most likely you had a big old CD case that had 500 CDs in it, and you would just fill it to the brim, you know what I mean? So yeah, Rush was a huge band for me. They're one of a kind, they're unique, and I'm so excited, so stoked to see them this year in December with Annika Niles. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, but this band, it meant so much to me hearing it in my childhood days, and trying to mimic Rush tunes like La Via Strangiato and YYZ, all the instrumental ones. So yeah, that was a huge inspiration listening to this. Musically, it did really put a dent in my brain. This one, I would say, this band is one of the most inspiring bands that I ever listened to, still to this day. And I always have to go back to them to kind of feel that inspiration and musicality, like just how talented musically they were for a three-piece band. So some other music stuff here that I have is Police. This is off the album Zenyatta Mandata. This other band, obviously The Police, was a huge another band that I was listening to a lot. This is live. It was a live concert. Stuart Copeland, for me, that's what did it too. I mean, obviously it's the whole band. I love Sting singing, Alex, what's his name? Alex Summers, guitar playing, and another trio, and just a different, unique sound. They're not prog metal, or they're not prog rock. They're more commercialized, like reggae mixed with punk rock and ska and all that. So yeah, another band that I was just obsessed with, and especially because Stuart Copeland, he does all those dotted eighths, dotted quarters, all that stuff, and triplets and everything with that left hand, and with the rim knock stuff. Just very unique drumming at that time. I remember hearing that again, like at 10, 11 years old, and hearing Roxanne, hearing Don't Stand So Close to Me, right with that intro, even Walking on the Moon. Like, it's just, those grooves are so unique. And again, totally different. Nothing like not hearing music like that as much, I guess, back then. But yeah, The Police was a huge, I loved listening to this band so much. And I would say it was a band that broke up way too soon. So some other bands, here we go. Yeah, obviously Van Halen. I think this is the only album that I had. This is the volume 1. Again, I'm not a guitar player, but drumming was is my main instrument. But I will say, obviously, listening to Van Halen, another type of playing, another scale of grand, like bigger musician than life itself. So like his playing. And then obviously you got David Lee Roth on the vocals, and so like it's just their sound. I feel like this band, Van Halen, was the blueprint for that 80s sound. And then obviously because of Van Halen's soloing, it put a mark and made it inspired millions of other musicians to kind of have that same. Like every guitar player in the 80s was all about the shredding, the shredder, whatever, and the crazy licks, the solos. So I don't know. I just, something about Van Halen, again, you listen to it and you're just like, damn, that is a power band, and just good full sound because of the guitars and then obviously David Lee Roth's singing and all that. But another band that I appreciate so much listening to from the 80s. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys some of my favorite kind of like synthesizer or electronic music, which is Depeche Mode. And Depeche Mode was another band that set the standard for electronic music, I would say. And this was a band that was from the UK, and and again, something about the voice of the singer of Depeche Mode, and again their sounds. And this is a lot more commercial music, obviously, but man, it's just, again, listening to the Depeche Mode and listening to all their songs, and even the stuff that they did in the 2000s. I still listen to those songs like Precious and Home and Reach Out and Touch Faith or whatever, some of those songs. But yeah, all my favorites. Enjoy the Silence. What is it? Master and Servant. Dream On, like those ones, even the later 2000 ones, and then obviously the 80s ones like Just Can't Get Enough, It's No Good, Strange Love, Everything Counts, Enjoy the Silence. So that I would say this is one of my favorite electronic synthesizer bands that again inspired so many other bands during that time, and they were not from America, and they somehow made it so big in America just from, again, hit after hit after hit. So really appreciate that kind of playing and that kind of music. It's a little bit later into the 90s. This is the Chemical Brothers. I unfortunately don't have any Daft Punk albums, but I think I remember at one point I did have the Around the World album. I forgot what that album is called. Like those bands like Chemical Brothers and Daft Punk were... that they set, again, another standard of different type of music, electronic music, and almost like disco and mixed with techno and all that. I have a huge soft spot for techno music. I would choose techno music over any of the rave music or any dubstep music. It's just for me personally, because I grew up with that techno upbeat, all that. So like, I feel like there's something special about when I hear techno music. I just think of a fighting movie. I just think of someone running. I think of someone getting in the car and like blasting, techno music inside and just kind of like racing. I think of everything when I think of techno music, and I don't know, something about techno music has just always been a part of my childhood as well. I would say it's more of the upbeat kind of music that I was listening to, besides rock and like all the other stuff. But techno was a big part of my childhood. Even bands like Chromeo, like a band, this is again like kind of synthesizer. And then shout out to also The Midnight. The Midnight is another band that I'm currently still obsessed with, and everything they do, I'm loving it right now. The Midnight, Chromeo 2 was one of the first ones that I like their older stuff in the 2000s. Some of their new stuff is still pretty good, but again, The Midnight, I think it's the Endless Dream album. That is still one of my favorite albums, and even their current stuff with the Halloween album that they did, and even their new current stuff, it's so damn good. So yeah, synthesizer, electronic, and techno are like, that's part of, again, genres that I just grew up listening to, mainly because of my mother. My mother, she'd come home, after work, and she was blasting music, because it's like, as soon as I'd come home from school, I just walk into, do you think you're better off alone? So like, and she's like blasting Daft Punk and she would try to she would drive and try to get in a good mood, and she would try to get us in a good mood, because she didn't want to let us see her knowing that she had a long, hard day of working. And so I think that was kind of the reason behind that. And so she was always trying to mask her feelings with this techno music, and for some reason the upbeat, you would think it's like, hey, that's too much, you know what I mean? But no, for her it was like, oh, I could put this on at 10 a.m. and we're gonna go get eggs and bacon, like we're gonna go get some I don't know, some coffee, and you're so I don't know, I'm still the same way. When I'm driving, I'm still blasting techno music. And so it's it's a different style completely, but it's something I still greatly appreciate so much. So yeah. And some of these next albums were stuff that was still in the 90s, maybe in the late 80s, 90s. And this was stuff that my dad was also obsessed with. And he showed us this band, artist basically, and his name was Joe Satriani. Again, this is kind of like the guitar player like Eddie Van Halen, but he was the Eddie Van Halen for the late 90s, I would say. Early 90s and to now. But after Eddie Van Halen left, or after they stopped playing as much, this was the other guitar player that everybody was talking about, was Joe Satriani. And this album specifically, Surfing with the Alien, is one of my favorite albums. I love this album so I know it like the back of my hand. Literally, it's every single song on this album was just, again, I'm not a guitar player. I'm the drummer, but every melody that Joe Satriani would do, I would just sing it and sing it and sing it and sing it. It's just, his melodies were so catchy, and again, instrumental kind of alternative rock, maybe not so much progressive, but more alternative rock and blues. Obviously, he was very blues kind of guitar player. Echo is one of my favorites on this one. Satch Boogie. I mean, this whole album, the Surfing with the Alien album, this whole entire album, it's so much from my childhood. And listening to I remember my dad first showed it to us, my brothers and I, it was on a cassette. So this was I love this album. It was one of my favorite albums growing up. And obviously, he has some live concerts with Eric Johnson and Steve Vai. That's a really cool one because they're playing all their other stuff. Eric Johnson was another one that I grew up listening to. Yeah, that was another inspiration. Again, not a guitar player, but I loved listening to Joe Satriani. Now we're kind of like getting into more jazzy kind of fusion stuff. Oh yeah, this is New York Voices. These were like, yeah, just pretty much like swing, but like these are vocalists. These are all vocal players, but they're doing all the scat, bebop, you know, all that. Yeah, very cool band. I like that kind of like scat kind of singing jazz. And then obviously we get over here to Michael, and then of course like Michael Camillo. He's like a Latin jazz fusion artist, player. On Fire is my favorite track on this album. Very important with all the, you know, crazy, all these crazy ass licks. And of course, Buddy Rich, obviously, all the number one hits: Dancing Men, Love for Sale, Mercy Mercy, Nutville, Slow Funk, the drum also, that waltz, Pick Up the Pieces. These are all standard Buddy Rich. This kind of style of playing was on another level for me. Hearing it every time, I still listen to Buddy Rich stuff on like the big band swinging, and it's just, again, another genre that I didn't probably appreciate jazz until I was like maybe in my late, almost mid 20s probably. I honestly could play it in high school, but I don't think I still appreciated it until I got like, yeah, maybe like 25, 23, 25. And so like, I felt like, yeah, it was one of those genres that it grew on me over time. So yeah, very important genre for me, and which leads me to the Chick Corea Electric Band, Beneath the Mask. This was, oh my God, one of the best fusion, two of the best fusion albums right here. And then this is from Inside Out, Chick Corea, another piano player, such a big name, and very inspired from his playing, obviously, because yeah, he's a crazy piano player, does all the styles: Latin, fusion, jazz, rock, you know, anything you can think of. And yeah, this album, huge inspiration. Beneath the Mask, 99 Flavors, Illusions. I think, yeah, that was some of my favorite off the, especially 99 Flavors. I think when I first heard that, I remember, yeah, my dad played it on his cassette, on his speakers, on his sub speakers. And I remember even had my head down at the time, and all you hear is you know, crazy, you know, all these runs on the piano, and then obviously because of Dave Weckl, because he's one of the drummers that I grew up listening to. I would say the shout out also is Dave Weckl's albums Heads Up and Master Plan. And yeah, I did talk about those with my brother on that one of those episodes on our favorite albums. But yeah, these CDs right here just meant so much to me right here, and I was totally inspired to get my, you know, jazz and fusion chops. Like I kept telling myself, oh, I want to sound like Dave Weckl on those albums. I want to sound like that. But obviously, yeah, it's the inspired players on this album. John Patitucci, what's that name? The other guy, the guitar player. I forget his name. Eric Marienthal, and then John Patitucci. He was the bass player. That's right. Yeah, monster, killer cats on this album. We have some more 80s bands. This is Queensryche. These two albums were big albums for me. Operation Mindcrime, and then the Queensryche Empire. These two albums specifically, just wow. Hearing Jeff Tate's voice, big and massive their sound was. The other Queensryche album I do like is Promised Land. It's like a more of an orange, kind of brown album cover. That was another album. That whole entire CD, I always had it on the loop, and especially Empire. I think that was one of my very favorite Queensryche albums with Della Brown, Best I Can, Jet City Woman, Silent Lucidity. I mean, there's so many, but and then Empire, obviously, and then even their earlier stuff. Obviously like what is it? Remember Me Now, Operation Mindcrime, Eyes of a Stranger. That was one of my favorites. And yeah, again, the list goes on. But these bands specifically, Queensryche, and it sucks that they're separated now, and they, the whole issue with Jeff Tate and the band. Like, it's funny because I did see Queensryche when they were together before they broke up. So I got to see Jeff Tate still with Queensryche, at least the main players. But yeah, amazing, great albums, great CDs that I cherish because it goes back to the studio sound. It's the quality that, at the time I remember, because I had my portable CD and this is how I was listening to albums. I would just exchange them out like that, and they probably all have handprints on them because you overuse them so much because you're constantly on a cycle of listening to the same music, at least until you feel like you can gel it thoroughly and you can almost sing every lyric and every drum part, every guitar solo, you know what I mean? And so, but I will say it's during that time, all the bands like The Rush, the Police, Queensryche, Van Halen, all these bands, what they had in common is just their sounds were, again, they're all unique, different bands, but they're so full, like the quality of the engineering and the people who engineered those albums and it's so damn good. It was like ear candy. You get zoned in when you're listening to a specific album, and sometimes like that album will be on repeat. You'll have this CD in your car or in your stereo or whatever, in your radio or whatever, or your little CD port, and you'll just have it on loop. And I think that's the thing I've realized, is that all these genres and styles is that everything was always on a loop. And I think it's just like I couldn't get enough music besides like watching movies. Music was another way of like finding my identity. It was like another way of finding out who I was, what I liked and what I didn't like. And again, not to compare my genres because they're all different, but it's just part of like the upbringing. When you do listen to music, it sets the bar, it sets the tone for when you listen to music now, and you're just like, I don't know, this doesn't sound, like as like thoroughly like precise in the engineering. Like it doesn't sound like the quality that you would hear back then. And so I feel like for technology that didn't exist for back then sounds better than the bands that do sound today. I don't know. I'm sure there's bands out there obviously that still that sound good. Obviously today it's just the right engineer, right place, right setting and everything. But I just think of back then, this quality for the 80s and 90s, I don't know. I just think they were way ahead of their time for sound quality, and then again pushing a product that had a huge impact in the industry and promoting and distributing sales and making music stay alive. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, Dream Theater. This was another band. Good stuff. I think I did have Images and Words and Awake, I think, at one point, but I don't know where those are at. I think my brother has those. Oh yeah, bands like another 90s bands. Dave Matthews. Oh, these are some of my favorite albums right here. Yeah, Satellite. Oh my God. Why Would You Say? Jimmy Thing. 34, and then obviously in this album, Crash. Oh my God, so much to say. Crash Into Me, Too Much, 41, Drive In, Drive Out, Trippin' Billies. Yeah, all these. This band was another band that I just kind of like. I didn't like really obsess over Dave Matthews, probably not till like maybe high school. It was just a time where this kind of music from the 90s was progressing from like rock, heavy rock, and then it started progressing into like the punk rock, and then the punk rock started segueing into like more pop, like funk, and then the funk started turning into more like of a jam, like just kind of free form. And Dave Matthews was a different, yeah, again, totally different style, totally different genre. Main reasons, obviously, it's obviously Dave Matthews singing, and it's the way he plays guitar. And for me, because I'm a drummer, but Carter Buford was a freaking beast behind that kid. And every song that you listen to, I call him the sneaky drummer. He's like the ninja. He'll just throw in like a little. He'll throw in those quick little 16th notes or 30-second note thingies, and he's like a ninja, man. He's a sneaky little drummer, but he's so good. He's so good. But I think, again, this band totally inspired, bands like John Mayer and all these other bands, like more of like a jam, but blues, kind of like almost jazz, like a mixture of everything, and even like country and rock. So it's like all these kinds of styles mixed into one. So yeah, Dave Matthews was a huge, awesome band listening to growing up. Jamiroquai. This was a hip hop R&B. Well, I would say that he was more hip hop ish. This kind of style. There's another band from the '90s, and I think the other one I liked was High Times. But yeah, this sound, again, it's just something was happening. Again, the transition from, like you get to the punk rock, and then you get to like more of a jam, kind of bluesy, kind of like country. And then there was also simultaneously someone trying to transition from electronic to more pop-ish and kind of like disco, and then R&B-ish. So it's just, again, all of this stems from timeline that the music genres were changing with the era. So yeah, really cool artist. I remember this one. I used to always have this one on repeat, Jamiroquai, the grunge rock era. And yeah, we got bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers. This was one of my favorite albums, the Peppers, Magic, Red Blood, Hot Sugar, and then Chill Sex. Yeah, this is my favorite. I'm sorry, this is my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album. This was one of the funkiest albums ever. I think just, again, fatter sound on the snare drum, the bass, the guitar, everything was just so like fat and just like it was just so like, thick. So again, engineering, whatever they were doing in the studio, just they did it right. The engineers, and EQing everything to get it to sound like full. Here we go. That's Rage Against the Machine. This album is this is like my favorite album right here. Obviously, it's Killing in the Name, Wake Up, Bullet to Head, Fistful of Steel. Yeah, these are. Yeah, this album was, again, it got heavier, and then in the '90s, and I think like bands like, for instance, like even like 311, it's just like, totally different sound. And then shout out to even like Incubus, and like the change of those music genres, just something snapped, something happened in the industry where everything was punk rock, ska, and like reggae, and like it was like a sublime almost, like it was a mixture of every kind of genre in a way. And then obviously I hear some more pop. I have Seal, and then Sade is awesome. Pops out. It's her voice. These two artists, Sade and Seal, it's their voices for me. I think that's why I like listening to them. It's just it just sounds so, the quality sounds so good. Like it just sounds so clear, and they're very unique. The singing, it's just, again, different time. What I have here is some of my favorite movie soundtracks. Obviously, this is the Nightmare Before Christmas. This was a huge one. I mean, I watched the movie since I was like 2 years old, and I always had this soundtrack in my head. And especially the one I know actually like from top to bottom is Jack's Lament. And that's the one performed by Danny Elfman. And like he actually sings it as Jack the Skellington. And I did like that, that he does sing Jack's, like all the songs, but he doesn't play him as the actor, but at least he sings the songs, because obviously it's Danny Elfman. So, and then other things that he's done, like the Batman soundtrack. This was a huge, inspiration hearing this for the first time, and it's because of the soundtrack. It's triumphant and it's powerful. It hooks you right away in the beginning of the Batman credits when you hear and all the marches, all the you know what I mean? So this was another genre that, again, soundtrack music was a big part of my childhood as well, because it was determined by the movies I was watching, And then even like the modern ones, like Hans Zimmer, he's another film composer that I just can't get enough of. Everything that he does, I'm on board. And like Pirates of the Caribbean was one of the first, I think, scores where I was like, damn, who did the score to this? You know what I mean? So, and then later he did the Superman, the Man of Steel, the Batman versus Superman, Interstellar, all the Christopher Nolan movies, except like some of the current ones. But yeah, this soundtrack, I did listen to this soundtrack a lot for some reason. The Batman versus Superman, I liked hearing it. The Stranger Things albums, these ones were cool. I appreciated this kind of music, especially because it's like they're paying homage to like the 80s kind of music, and these electronic synthesizer bands, it almost like, when I first saw the show, I think that's what kept me invested, because of the music and the theme. It's already like it was a good hook. Just the theme of the music, that I hadn't even like started the show, but when you hear the theme, it already hooked me. It wasn't even the dialogue. It wasn't even any of that. The music through the whole entire series kept me invested because of how good it was, and how it would, again, make the scene keep going and escalate and keep it on its edge, So I think if the music, if these composers weren't a part of this project, I don't think this series it would still be a good series, but I don't think it would not hold up to that standard of one of the greats, I think, if it wasn't for these film composers. So yeah, A Star Is Born. This was a good one. I was surprised I was really surprised by Bradley Cooper, that he could sing, and I'm a big fan of Lady Gaga, so anything that she does, she's another one where I'm on board, because once she starts singing, you're just, damn, you see how talented she is. But yeah, even Bradley Cooper, I was just like, in the shadow. I was just like, what the hell is this guy? Like, lay it down, let me away now. But yeah, I had this on repeat for a long time.
Right.
This is probably still like one of my top 3 favorite soundtrack albums, which is the La La Land soundtrack. And again, yeah, another actor where I was like, Ryan Gosling could sing, I did not expect that. And then even Emma Stone, again, showed their talent. But the reason why I like this one specifically is because it has more jazz elements. Jazz mixed with musical. So like that was like 2 different genres where like I did not expect a movie to have jazz and like Broadway, like kind of like, and like pop, like all into one. So like it was a first of its kind, I think, for this movie. And yeah, I love this soundtrack. It's a really amazing soundtrack because of all the jazz elements and everything. So yeah, this one, I was listening to this maybe a little too much. I mean, I even had it on, like, I remember when I would pick up my friends, I'd be like, okay guys, we're listening to La La Land, and you just hear the piano, dun, 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 dun. You just hear the piano, dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, this was amazing. I love this soundtrack. This was a good one. Pretty much all 80s. It's kind of like almost like The Wedding Singer. It has like the same kind of all the 80s hits from all the UK bands and all that. Oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Come and get your love. That was a good one. I did like all the songs. How did that get here? It says PlayStation Spider-Man. Yeah, that was from. Here's some like 80s soundtrack to Footloose, Some Kind of Wonderful. good stuff, man. Good quality 80s sound music too. And all this type of music that I was listening to, it was from rock, from punk rock to reggae to jazz to funk to pop and funk, R&B, all those grunge bands. And so I just feel like, yeah, some of these bands, again, I grew up listening to. It was a huge impact listening to that type of music. So there you guys have it. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Again, yeah, it's my whole entire CD collection. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, bye.